You're listening to Alcoholics Alive, where recovered members of Alcoholics Anonymous share their experience on how they live AA as a way of life. None of our participants get paid or speak for AA. Here are your hosts, Shank and Wayne. Shank, we are episode 1, season 11.
Hard to believe.
That's crazy. It is hard to believe. Just moving right along.
So wait, has it been 2.5 years?
It has been officially 2.5 years.
All right.
Yep. And our 30 listeners, we appreciate you. It's more than that. All of y'all that have stuck with us, we really appreciate it. If you're new, this is Alcoholics Alive. If this is your first time listening, we are recovered AA members. Podcast is to talk about recovery and how to recover from alcoholism. And we try to talk about how to live AA as a way of life. And we try to stick to the message as it's outlined in the book, Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you're looking for that, you're in the right spot. If you're not looking for that, you can still listen and you might start looking for that. Oh my goodness. Shank, what's our Upon Awakening reading?
All right. Season 11, episode 1, our Upon Awakening reading comes from the book Alcoholics Anonymous at page 17. That's the 4th edition, 2001. And it says, the tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
I think they're talking about the common solution being the 12 steps,
I
right?
believe so. Yep.
Yep.
For those who suffer from alcoholism.
From those who, that's, yeah, good point.
Mm-hmm. And so I love this reading, and I come back to it frequently because my drinking didn't look like everyone else's, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't drink for very long compared to some people. I didn't do other tablets.
Right. Or pills.
Or whatever.
Or powder.
You know, and it doesn't make me any better or any worse than anyone else in Alcoholics Anonymous, but we have a common solution, and that way I don't get too lost in the sauce, right? Like I don't just talk about my drinking excessively. Now with my friends, like tell funny drinking stories. Okay, fine, but it doesn't bother me that other people did other things. We have a common solution for those who suffer from alcoholism, and that is, it's beautiful.
There's a lot of hope in the reading, especially if you suffer from alcoholism.
That's right.
Then, yeah, the great news that the book carries is that there is a solution. And that, at least when the book was written, they were all absolutely in agreement with that.
Yeah. Well.
So, I think as kind of the lead-in said, so if you suffer from alcoholism, the solution to that is in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. I think we have found that to be true, that it has worked well for us, and it's worked well for many, many others.
Mm-hmm.
So, Shank, what is, well, I'll kick it off. So this season, we are going to talk about the 12 concepts for world service.
Whoa.
I know that is riveting for many of you.
Wow.
We have... And believe it or not, we've actually had some requests from our listeners to cover 12 concepts. We've had some folks wanting us to do some stuff out of the book, AA Comes of Age, which we've considered, and we probably eventually will. But, you know, we're just coming off of a season where we talked about the General Service Conference. We were obviously very, I think we were informative, but we were also opinionated about some of the stuff going on at the conference and at the General Service Office. So we figured we would discuss the 12 concepts for world service. They were actually written in 1962, and they were. I mean, you can read the history on them in the service manual. AA Comes of Age. There's other stuff that's written. There's a book called Our Great Responsibility that has a lot of some stuff from Bill Wilson talks that he gave. That's got a lot of information on it. But basically, early on, Bill and Bob knew that they couldn't handle everything. I mean, they were handling stuff, and they knew they wouldn't be around forever. So they started talking about, hey, who's going to advise the trustees once we're gone? And that's how the conference came about, and how the delegate system and the upside down triangle came about. And that was in the early 50s, and it worked so well that they obviously continue that to today. But Bill felt that there needed to be something else written on how Alcoholics Anonymous and the World Services were going to function, and the relationship between the fellowship, which would be the groups, the office, and the conference, how all that would work out. So he wrote the 12 concepts. There's a short form and a long form, kind of like the traditions. You can find those in the service manual. Interesting thing. So he wrote the long form in '62. I think the short form wasn't approved until 1971. But they kind of guide the conference, and they kind of guide the staff and the trustees and the directors on their relationship with the fellowship. So we're excited to explore it. We're going to try to keep things simple. We're not going to take a deep dive. We're just going to kind of just talk specifically what they are and how they may apply to our groups and us individually. And hopefully it'll get you to think about them a little bit. Now, Shank, I got to say this.
Yes.
So I gave a talk on Concept one time. So it was at a SASA.
Okay.
That's the Southern States Service Assembly.
Sasa.
And so anyway, I was actually like the first speaker talking on Concept 1. The only reason I bring this up, I know it's probably a little arrogant, but
But I'm going to say it anyway.
I had several people come up when they found out that I was like talking. They came up and said, "You've never been a delegate. You've never been a trustee. How can you give a talk on a concept?" Can you believe that? And
I
I'm
can't believe
thinking
that,
like,
actually.
well, you talk on the 12 steps all the time. You've never taken the 12 steps. What?
Has this been since I've been sober?
Yes,
Okay, I think I remember this.
it is. So anyway, my point is, you don't have to be a delegate or a trustee to know the 12 concepts and to participate in the 12 concepts and to live the 12 concepts. So they're not really advanced AA. Some of them get a little complicated once you get past number 5 or 6, but they're there for everybody. So
What is Concept 1?
Concept 1 says the final responsibility and ultimate authority for AA World Services should always reside in the collective conscience of our whole fellowship. That's what the short form says.
Okay, so that sounds like this is talking about who's in power, who holds the power in AA.
That's right. And guess what?
What?
It's you. It's me. So this is how the concept's supposed to work, right? I mean, all the real authority for A World Services, like for literature, public information, GSO, it really rests with the groups.
Okay, so
And
I don't know if I've always been under the impression or if just like, certainly not in the last several years, but I've always just kind of thought in the back of my mind, like, the general service office takes care of that, or the trustees or the staff.
Yeah. Well, their job is really is they're tasked to carry out what we would call the collective conscience of the groups. Now, again, and we'll learn this in some later concepts. I mean, they have a business to run, so I mean, every little decision that they make every day, they're not having to run that by the fellowship because they have to operate. So they're given autonomy and flexibility and the right to participate in their own job and their position. But ultimately, right, we always talk about an upside down triangle in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I know if you've listened to previous podcasts, we kind of question whether that is as viable today as it once was. Forget that. We're going to just kind of talk in perfect principles today. Technically, the trustees in New York and the staff, they're really not ultimately in charge. It's supposed to be the fellowship and the groups and each member as their voice goes up through what they call the upside down triangle.
Okay, so
So,
you have the groups, and then
yep, got a
districts,
member group.
and then the area.
Yep.
That's where they
And
have the
then
assembly.
yep.
And then the conference, the
And then
General
the
Service
conference.
Conference,
Correct.
and then AA World Services.
That's right.
Okay.
So the way that works is right, the individual member, then the group, then the district, then the area, then they go to the area sends a delegate to the conference. And then out of the conference, advisory actions are agreed upon, and basically the trustees and the staff are responsible for carrying out the advisory actions.
Okay.
So
So
that's how that
starting
works.
at our group, right, at your home group, your group elects a GSR, General
Yep,
Service Representative.
correct.
And then the GSR meets at the district or the
At the
area.
correct at the district and the area.
Okay. And they elect the delegate.
Correct.
Okay. And then the delegates go to the conference and speak for all of us.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's the idea. So the delegate is tasked with taking its area's voice, conscious, if you will, to the conference. Hence why they claim in concept one that the final responsibility and ultimate authority is with the fellowship. They call that, and so now we would call the conference where all the delegates are at and the trustees and staff. They're calling that the collective conscience of the fellowship.
All right.
That's kind of how that works. And if you think about it, right, most organizations are top down,
Yeah.
right? You have a president or CEO, and then you got people under that person, and they typically call the shots, and employees kind of, do what they're tasked to do. In AA, it is somewhat different in that the office and the staff are really supposed to carry out the wishes and the conscience of the fellowship. So that's how it's supposed to work, right? And then those folks are trusted servants, right? They're paid staff, but we trust them to carry out their responsibility that they were tasked with from the conference. It's kind of like in a group, it would be kind of like tradition two, right? And tradition two talks about a loving God that's expressed through the group conscience. So the conference is kind of like basically a huge tradition two meeting, right? Where they're gathering together and they're coming up with, what they call spiritualized. It's a spiritualized society.
There you go.
So I think why it matters is because if it's followed correctly, it does keep A from becoming like a corporation or a hierarchy. So A's never been designed like a corporation where there's
Well, right. So, like, if you write to GSO and you say, hey, there's a group in my area that has, I don't know, taken God out of the steps, and they post it
hmm
up, GSO is probably going to write you a letter back saying, well, they have the autonomy to do that.
they will.
They're not going
Well,
to like issue a statement and say all groups, all Area 51 is on probation because they have groups that change the steps.
yes, yeah, that's that's true. That's one of the great things about the fourth tradition, right? Group autonomy is that the group can basically do what it wants to do, and GSO can't stop it. The delegate can't stop it. The district can't stop it. I guess they could send you a letter asking you to, if you were doing something really egregious or crazy, but you typically never rarely see that happen. So, I think some things on that's important on concept one is that it reminds us that we all have the responsibility to keep a kind of simple and to keep AA working and keep it functioning. And I would, argue keep it a little bit in line with our history and our traditions. I mean, it's everybody's responsibility, but it does also keep us from having huge egos at the top, trying to run things. It does stop us from having one person in charge, right? So we don't have a CEO or a president, which is a good thing. I think you already mentioned it, but if you think about how to apply concept one, how we would kind of energize that in our group, we would do that by having a GSR and having a GSR that actually participates in the district and brings the information back to the group. Have a GSR that actually participates in the area and brings that info back and then carries the voice of that group to the area. So that, I mean, that's how groups and individuals can participate, is by knowing what that structure is and being in a group that does that. Here's the thing that we've learned, Shank, from some of the other seasons we've done, is that currently only about 30% of the groups actually participate.
Yeah, it's pretty low.
Yeah. So, and in some areas it's way lower than that.
Hmm.
So just in general, and I think totally it might be a little less than that, but just to say now that 30% of the groups actually participate in district and area, then that's when I would say, are we really getting the collective conscious of the fellowship?
Well, I think too, at times
It,
it can be a little discouraging. I've always been members of groups that had GSRs that go to districts, that go to assembly, that, the whole deal. And at times it can be a little discouraging when you feel like you are saying things and then no one is listening.
yeah,
And over the years, I've just had to realize that is not the point of it. The point of it is, in order to stay connected to district and area and AA as a whole, I need to be part of a group that has a GSR. I need to know what's going on in Alcoholics Anonymous and help newer people participate, because that is what people did for me.
yeah,
And even though it seems like this cyclical thing where it's like, okay, a group of people stop participating, or you try to get them involved, or, it can just seem like this thing that is just like repeats over
yeah,
and over and over. Other people had a responsibility and helped me through it, so I have a responsibility to speak up in my home group and help other people realize why these things are important, because it can be just like, oh, who cares? Like, there are other people that do that service. There are other people who speak up. There are other groups that we agree with them, so we'll just let them go and say it at the assembly or talk to the delegate. And no matter if people agree with me or not, I still think that everyone needs to speak up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I appreciate you saying that because it is easy to get discouraged when you don't feel like you're actually being heard, or if you're constantly in what we would call the minority, and then you get looks because you're trying to be more traditional or whatever it is. It can be discouraging, and it would be easy to just say, throw your hands up and say, well, I'm not going to participate in this anymore. I'm just going to go back to my community or my group and just try to help people, which we should do. But it is important to stay involved, and it is important for people with experience and the people that are willing to speak up and maybe say some of the tough things. It's important for us to be there and to show up. And I guess that's kind of the essence of Concept One.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, if we really believe that the final responsibility and the ultimate authority for AA resides in the group and the individual, then the group and the individual needs to show up.
That's right. So
Yeah.
if you're listening, newly sober, 30 years sober, does your group have a GSR? And like, listen, I'm not sitting here suggesting that you go to your next business meeting like, we need to have a GSR, we're changing everything. It may be that that meeting, if it's a meeting or a group, just doesn't want to participate, and they have the autonomy to do that. But if you do want to be more involved in the group conscience of Alcoholics Anonymous as a whole, you probably need to have a home group that has a GSR.
Yep. It's important.
And then the GSR needs to be connected to the district in the area.
That's right. And you need one other thing on that is it's important to have a GSR that's willing to do the work.
That's right.
Yeah. So
I feel pretty fortunate that I have been, and listen, this happens in AA. It's always going to happen in AA. Someone gets elected into a position who has no business. But I've always been part of home groups that there are other people who are also always involved. They're either involved in district or they're involved at the area level, or groups of us just volunteer at the assemblies. Like there is always some other contact. It shouldn't just rest on the GSR, like do all of this and do all of it alone.
good point.
And so I think that it's really, I'm spoiled in AA, if you will, because I have been a part of two groups that there are multiple people who are encouraging, who have done those positions before, who are interested, who know everyone that attend these assemblies and want to see different people, catch up. So just because you're not the GSR doesn't, if you have been the GSR before, maybe you should be there with that person and encourage them and help them and maybe explain just what the hell is going on.
Yep. Yep, good point. So remember, Concept One, it's not just a theory. It's actually it's a challenge for us to step up. And if you're a long-term listener of ours, you know that we are very opinionated and have been outspoken about stuff. So, I mean, then we've both come to the conclusion it's important for us to continue to stay involved and to speak up and to I wouldn't say, we say trust the process, and you hear that in AA a lot. I guess that's okay. What I would say is let's get involved and
Well, take some action, and then the results
some
are
action.
up to
that's right.
higher power, God.
THP. Yeah. All right. Well, that's Concept One in a nutshell. It's simple. Yeah. You're in charge of AA. What are you
There
going
you
to do
go.
with it? Shank, let's
Don't-
move on to living, huh?
You can't sit back and just complain if you're
Right.
not involved.
Yeah. And you should know that we don't do that. I mean, I know we sound like we complain a lot, but we are involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move on to Living Sober Shrapnel. We gotta get through this before they change that book.
I know. Okay, so we're only about halfway through. Hopefully, by the end of season 11, we will be all the way through Living Sober. Um, there are parts of it that are better than others, in my opinion. But Living Sober Shrapnel is our segment of lore, myth, and sayings frequently from the booklet. Frequently in the booklet, Living Sober.
Okay.
It is a booklet. Okay. So, our first Living Sober Shrapnel is formal institutionalized sessions of peace.
Wow. I can't wait to hear this one.
So here's what it says. This is from page 45 of the 55th printing, 2024. And it says, more formal institutionalized sessions of peace in the company of others, such as religious services, retreats, and the like, are particularly rewarding for certain people.
That is, wow, man. I'm glad they're rewriting the book. I mean,
Okay, but this is still
Well-
actually in connection with Easy Does It. In the
then
part of
maybe
this book.
hold on. Let me keep an open mind then. 'Cause
Keep an open mind. Keep an open mind.
We kept Easy Does It. I love that. Let's see here. I died this morning when we saw it on that chalkboard
I know, me too.
or that dry erase board. More formal institutionalized sessions of peace in the company of others are particularly rewarding. So I guess he's talking about like church services or like a retreat or a conference that's less formal than a group, maybe? Or it's interesting. Formal institutionalized sessions of peace. That's like a fancy term for an AA group too, right? This is a institutionalized session of peace.
That's right.
What do you think about it? The
Interesting. Let me see. I was trying to make, yes, this is still under the header, Easy Does It.
okay.
I was trying to confirm that for you.
So maybe
let's
we're
see.
supposed.
Okay, and it's talking about slowing ourselves down.
Yes,
If
yeah,
you have help of another person, you may be able to generate your own peace.
I get it now.
Sometimes you can sit quietly.
So going to a retreat or like a spa or to a
Yes.
religious service is an opportunity to slow down and to take it all in and take it easy.
Yes. And so, you know what, I didn't use as any shrapnel, but it is talking about people who are consistently late to everything all the time. So it is talking about
It's the
slowing
worst.
down, making sure that you set out earlier in the day than we used to, so we can move with less hurry. But
Yeah.
I figured that may really set me off if we started talking about that.
It probably would. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna maybe at the home group next week. I'm gonna actually, if I get called on to share, I may say, I just love coming to this more formal, institutionalized session of peace. But I keep getting distracted by you guys getting up and getting coffee and going to the bathroom in the middle of the meeting. It messes with my session of peace.
Yes.
Oh man, I'm scrapping it.
It's out of here. Okay, so still under our header of Easy Does It. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check here. It says there is, okay, our next one is mindless Pollyannaism. Mindless Pollyannaism.
Okay.
Okay. There is no prescription for mindless Pollyannaism. We do not pretend that hardships are meaningless, nor deny that everyone has mountains to climb from time to time. Grief really hurts, and so do other kinds of pain. Okay, so this is, maybe I should have been doing this the whole time. This is under the header of being grateful.
Okay. Mindless Pollyannaism.
Yeah, I had to look up Pollyannaism. It's an attitude or belief that everything will always turn out well, often to an unrealistic degree. So, like excessive optimism, even in the face of negative circumstances. And it's derived from the character Pollyanna in Eleanor Porter's novel, who's known for unwavering, almost childlike optimism.
Well, so I'm actually liking this a little more and more
Yes,
because we do this in a. We've talked. It's one of our. I think it's one of both of our pet peeves.
it is.
Sometimes when you hear people in A talk, it's like they got sober and everything has been wonderful.
Yes.
Everything. I know that's probably not what they're saying, but that is what it sounds like. That everything's great, everything's going to be okay, and just turn it over.
Yes.
Yeah, my HP showed up today and just did it all for me.
Yes.
Or
even
I think it.
people that I've tried to help, who you meet with them and whatever, and it's just, you're like, okay, well, what's going on before you read? And they're like, well, everything is just really great and blah, blah, blah. And then
Right.
like a month later, they're drinking and they're like, I can't believe you didn't know my husband left me and my dog died. And it's like, well, how was I supposed to know that?
Yeah. So I think that's a thing in A, and I think a lot of times newcomers, or not even newcomers, but people hear that, and then they probably wrongly think that nothing bad's going to happen to them. Or when something bad happens, or they get fearful about something, they think they're doing something wrong.
Right.
You see it too with people that have been sober for a while. Something happens, or they're not feeling good about something, and they don't think they're supposed to be feeling that way because little Jimmy said he didn't feel that way. And then they drink, or they commit suicide, or they disappear, they go do other stuff. But anyway, mindless Pollyannaism. It's kind of hiding from the truth and being a little delusional too, isn't it?
Yeah, and like right before this, it talks about being in the habit of thinking in such neurotically depressed ways can stay with some of us, we have found, until we learn to spot it and carefully root it out. And then it says this is no prescription for mindless Pollyannaism. So it's basically saying, being neurotically depressed or mindless Pollyanna is like neither of these are the way. Like everything's not so bad, it's never going to get better, you might as well not be here. And nothing is always so good that
Right.
nothing bad ever happens.
Yeah. What's that? I think we covered this in Shrapnel time. Life gets lifey.
Yes. Life be lifin'.
Life be lifing. Oh my goodness. What do you think about this one?
I kind of like this one, but we should probably still scrap it.
All right. Let's scrap it. It's out
All
of here.
right. So, our last Living Sober channel today is Rage and Grief and Anger. Okay. This is from page 47. And it says, when our 90-year-old grandfather, long ill and unhappy, finally dies, we again have a choice. We can insist that the only thing to do is rage and grief and anger at the surprise of it, or wallow in guilt, and perhaps drink in either case. Or we can, besides being sad, remember that we did have a long, often good and happy life, that we did try to be good to him and assure him of our continuing love, and that his suffering and unhappiness are now over. It is doubtful that he would appreciate our using his passing as an excuse to get drunk and endanger our health.
This is weird. I get what it's like a very specific example.
But you know why that is? Because you hear so many people, quote, in the rooms of AA, raise their hand and say, well, I drank because my 90-year-old grandfather died and I didn't expect it. He had been sick for 10 years. I didn't expect it. It was a surprise. I can't believe it. And I had to drink because he's no longer here. That's why.
You do hear that a lot. You do hear stuff like that a lot.
And listen, okay, I'm not someone who people think I deal with death in a weird way. So maybe I'm not the one to hold the standard here, but especially someone that is chronically ill or older, or it's like, oh, I spend as much time as I can with you, but I'm not delusional to think that you should just live on into eternity to meet my selfish needs of you not being gone.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's the spiritual way to look at it. The other is all emotion and selfish. Yeah. And then you'll see people that didn't even have a relationship with their 90-year-old grandfather. Never didn't even know him, or they were extremely resentful at him and pissed off their whole life and didn't have a relationship. And then he dies, and then they're all bent out of shape and emotional about it, and it like craters their life. And I'm like, you didn't like the guy, or you never actually knew him.
This has happened to me. Someone was hysterically crying, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And it was, oh, this family member died. And then I just asked the question, like, oh, when's the last time that you talked to this person? And it was like, oh, since I was 18, which was like 15 years ago. And I was like, what is going on here?
Oh, man. My mom and dad died unexpectedly in the last 4 years. I went to the home group.
But you know what? Business. I don't think you were mindlessly Pollyannaism. I don't think you were having, and I don't think you were whatever else it said.
Raging in grief and anger.
Yeah, I don't think. You were neurotically depressed about it.
Yeah, I handled business.
That's right.
I just kept moving on with my life, which is what both of them told me to do. Mm-hmm. Why would I honor that?
When you had good relationships with both of them, in your sobriety, right?
Yep. The only thing to do is rage and grief and anger. I have raged in anger before.
I like how this reading's a little bit like passive aggressive in a way.
It is.
Like, we can insist that the only thing to do is rage and grief and anger. At the surprise of it, it's like you just talked about your 90-year-old grandfather who was long ill and unhappy.
Yeah.
Surprise. Yeah. He's croaked.
So basically, life is going to happen, and we're not exempt from problems. And having a life episode does not give us the reason to drink.
And you know what?
I've never suffered from that, whatever that is. But
no, if you are someone who is just faking it in AA, then get a new sponsor, get a new home group, talk to someone about that, work the steps honestly, whatever you're being dishonest about, get a relationship with God. Like, you just hate to see someone that you think is doing what they need to be doing.
Yep.
Because if you drink because of something like this, either you're not an alcoholic, I guess, or there's something that needs to be cleaned up, and there are so many people willing to help.
Yep. Well, I think we're going to have to scrap.
It's out of here. It is out of here. Oh, rest in peace, 90-year-old grandfather.
Yep. Rest in peace.
Rip, Grandpappy.
Yep.
Well, all those are out of here.
They're gone. All right. Well, I've got a newfound appreciation for the book Living Sober.
Me too.
Yep. All right. Hey, appreciate you listening to us on this season 11, episode 1 on the concept. So we, if you're going to carry out concept 1 in your life, what that would mean is participate in your recovery and participate in your group in a very spiritual way. Let your voice be heard. In the meantime, be free.
Freedom.
Thanks for listening. If you have a comment, suggestion, or just need help, you can email Shank and Wayne at freedom@alcoholicsalive.com, Remember, we're recovered members of Alcoholics Anonymous, but we do not speak for Alcoholics Anonymous, nor do we get paid. Join us next week for another great episode.